like Philip Larkin, too. Stodgy old guy writing about jazz, but This Be the Verse is a beautiful poem for those of you that like that kind of thing. When I was younger, I used to play basketball, you know, like before my knees went out, and before I just got tired and I had a kid that wanted to play Barbies instead. You know. But I went back and started playing ball again, you know, later, and it's not the same thing. I can't jump anymore. I'm not fast anymore. And so I decided to write a poem about what it means to play basketball at, you know, age 40. It's called Synth, Composite, Basketball, No More Fundamentals. Check out Iverson in his Jim Braid retroactivism. Cross handles over because a hand can forget how to stay sober. A hand can forget how to handle like Vinny do, like the microwave Vinny do, without belief. Now that's neck-to-neck schism, even without the gold teeth. I like crossover, but they call it tats and funks. I like overpriced throwbacks since before crunk. Mollicized, not for ball. In champs, they only play hip-hop now and everybody's going pro. These boys be Newton confused. Up with no return trip, up toward the half-moon backboard, up past the full-moon backdap, until the ball is post-dated by some intergalactic bitch slap. Not in my house, says the middle ager at the Y. These boys be one less chapter to read in science books. These hops be invalidating gravity's flow and push. These non-posters sitting on dubs, riding circles, like that bus full of criminals in the Method Man video. White boys sampling and one videos. Can I not get a run? Where is the lift, the rotation of the ball moving like hand-polished rims that keep their spun even when the car stops? Yeah, I'm like totally fixated on those rims, right? Like, cause they're hypnotizing. I don't think people use them anymore, but when I was writing this book 5 years ago, they did.
They're doing each other.
They're doing hey, you know, that's my kind of shit. I'll tell you, I like to be hypnotized. It's a whole other thing. Well, maybe I'll read a few more. I've got a whole raft of poems in here about musicians because it's one of the things I'm a big fan of. And one of my favorite guitar players is Eddie Hazel, you know, the guitar player from Funkadelic. And he was a brilliant guitarist and sort of, I don't know, they made Maggot Brain, and then that was sort of the end of people paying attention to him. And he died in '92 in D.C. He was all strung out and homeless. And here's a poem for him. It's called Maggot Brain. Maggot Brain. Jawbone used for a washboard, scrape of knuckles, whelped skin from washing bumps, from washing needles or mosquitoes, or fish scale rails, maggot brain. Teeth stickling a long dream, click of brain, click of mousetrap on the four-fingered way down, click. That's what happens when George Clinton says, play like your mama just died. Everything else is a handful of stomach aches, maggot brain. The cavity of a jail cell smells like everything a man wants gone. Not funky, but nasty. Not nasty because nobody's trying to shank you in the shower. It's just a big time out with bologna sandwiches and bad fruit. Jail is a mouthful of twitches and aches, maggot brain. Ain't you supposed to rise to the top of this mess like some triplicated heart? Ain't that extra chamber below the frets in charge of breathing? I hear that thing wheezing like a breath still trying to breathe. Maggot brain, somebody someplace is losing a mama right now. Go, maggot brain. Go, maggot brain. The other guy I really liked as a guitarist was Jimi Hendrix. You know? Got a poem in here about him too. Because how can you not like Jimi Hendrix? I mean, he's Jimi Hendrix. I usually don't read the whole poem, but I think it's appropriate for today. So it's a two-part poem. It's not long, it's just 2 parts. Landscape postcard, there's Jimi Hendrix. 1. Great afro, huge hands, guitarist. Mountains here and there stretched from hardwood and devil's dust. You strung other things, colors thumb-picked from a dragonfly's blink, moon cemented in the sink of a little girl's dreams. Free-falling from planes, grabbing air by the fistfuls must have done something. Or maybe it was that army green in the band of gypsies. How else could you peel the sea with a bell-bottom hootenanny? Or make a jellyfish in a sea-star scrap, noses wide open. Brine and sand, baby, reverb stereophonically. Strings sounding like a woman waking up. Strung sounding like she still wished for sleep. 2. Dear Manic Depression, you have manicured the increments of race. Nigga yelled, full throttle is the blind side of meat. All that jive-dependent geography, mulatto shakedown for me. Your daddy was a black man and your mama was white. She was the one who sent the letter with his address in case you have something that you want to say. Here's what I have to say. Dear Cornelius, back in 1970, you weren't thinking of the inevitable bum rush of coffee-colored children or the questions. So what exactly are you? Are you Mexican or something? Dad, being mixed is feeling sweet feeling like Hendrix, half-breed of a different half, sleeping pills and free fall, all bootlegs and misplaced letters. Got a few poems in here to my dad, but I'm not going to really get into those. He used to be on Soul Train, he was a Soul Train dancer, so I guess that gives him some kind of cachet, you know. Maybe a couple more.
Yeah, don't forget your Miles poem.
Oh, no, I left it in it's in my bag over there.
You want it?
Oh, it's by
Walter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to, I think I'll just maybe read 2 more poems. I appreciate you all listening to me and paying attention.
And since Emil is here, you can also, after you finish reading, if you want to ask him some questions and dialogue.
Yeah, we can do that too. I'm always happy to answer questions.
Pretty cool.
This is a poem about Miles Davis, who is another one of my favorite musicians. In fact, the first poem that I ever wrote was about him. So I was I'll be writing poems about him for a while, and then I'll read one more after that. This poem is called Great Expectations, and it's got an epigraph from Miles Davis, and it is, if you understood everything that I said, then you'd be me. Right? That was your bad self, Miles Davis. And then he was out like a secretary at lunch. He was so far gone, memory was a memory. He was twisted too tight and burst into 4 lustrous diamonds and a handkerchief of hand claps. So sporadic that 4/4 time with its whistles and upside-down 8th notes like thin models waddling a catwalk. Outside of the club, the magic of breezes and rusted tailpipes sputtering their own significance. Outside, he mumbled about his brain fingers as they wrapped around the asthmatic trumpet's slim windpipe. His hair was slicked back in code-switching brilliance. He had a thin tie pointing to the downside of things. He mumbled about brass bumper clots rattling his brain pan while the universe stretched before him like a zipper after too much lunch. Luckily, gravity was built to pull things back in no matter how many musicians are on the roster. Then, a cop pressing down on his head with gravity's incessant verb. The billy club worked like a wah, down and then down again, no matter that his name was neoned overhead. Yeah, so Miles Davis went out to have a smoke one time, and this cop told him to stop loitering, and Miles, being Miles, was like, "Motherfucker, do you know who this is?" And he pointed up to the thing, and the cop beat him down. And so there's this great picture of him. I mean, it's not great because he's hurt. But it's a great picture of him holding this like bag of ice on the side of his head underneath a sign with his name on it. I mean, that is exactly it. I mean, that's exactly what it was. So the last poem that I'm going to read, and things, again, I really appreciate you listening to me, is a poem called Wheels of Steel, and it's in mixology, but I've taken to rewriting it when I read it to keep it entertaining to me. It's in the voice of the turntables. So it's a persona poem, the turntables speaking. I always imagine my turntables kind of being busted up with like one of those Radio Shack 4 tracks running them, because that's what I had when I wanted to be a DJ. All of the samples in this are from MF Doom. You guys know who he is, the metal-faced villain. So you'll hear him in here as well. Wheels of Steel, metal-faced Doom mix. Like perfect time. I got me 2 songs instead of eyes, all swollen and blacked out like the day after a lost fight. 2 jigsaws spinning, buzzing the backdrop for woodshop or MC, bar mitzvah or after set. I read the fine print, it'd be like, what's the big deal? I spun wheels of steel since broke wheel big wheels, with shined up rims, still spinning after the ride stops. Dubs kind of grind like me in their perpetuity because a little grease always keeps the wheels spinning like sitting on 23s to get the squealers grinning.